everybody, it's Jean here from True Love Quilts for You. Hope you're having a lovely day. Block party, my block party, block number 4 is coming up. I'm going to get right to it because I have a confession to make. Here's our new block, block number 4. It's a star block. I hope you like it. Not all that hard. I said I was going to be making a star block, and this is it. Now what I've done is I've actually used 3 different fabrics, as you can see. I used my background fabric, I used the point fabric, and I used a center fabric. You can make this star however you wish. You can make the star all one color. What I've done is, and I apologize, I messed up a little bit on my directions. I forgot when I was showing you how to cut out. I missed one part of cutting the background fabrics, and I do go back and address that. I hope I've made that a little bit clear. But what I've done at the very end is I've just written down the actual cutting directions for this block here. So I'll just keep my camera on that, so maybe you could just pause the video and then you can get a more concise what you need, because there's quite a few bits in this, and it's basically a 9 patch. Remember, that's sort of what we're doing. I'm almost the first couple blocks were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units. So this is our block. It's a star, real pretty. I was making it, my 1/4" seams. I was real thrilled, and I was thrilled the way it turned out. Almost every point is pretty good, except this one. This one messed up a little bit, but that's okay. My tutorial, I was sort of in a hurry, and I finished my tutorial, the end of my tutorial, and I forgot to get out my ruler, my trusty ruler, because you know that's what I do at the end of my videos, right? And I got out my ruler, my 12.5 inch, 12.5 inch, 12.5 inch, right? Not quite 12.5 inches. And I thought, what? Like, what? I know how to sew. I know how to do 12.5 inches. And I'm thinking it's sort of like an 1/8 of an inch off. Who cares, right? Who cares? But here I am trying to say, oh, you have to do it 12.5 inches, right? 12.5 inches. So it's sort of like 1/4 of an inch off all the way around, 1/8 of an inch off on each side type of thing. And I thought, what in the world? Couldn't figure it out. But guess what? I got a new sewing machine. Remember? I got my new Juki sewing machine. I'm not sewing on my brother. And it has a 1/4 inch foot. And I just plugged it in, and after a bit of messing with the tension, because as you know, this new sewing machine is a mechanical sewing machine. My other sewing machines have been computerized sewing machines. And I was messing with the tension and everything. Anyway, I got it right. I put on the foot that it's supposed to be, and I didn't measure my 1/4 inch. Remember, I'm always telling you, you know, do your 1/4 inch seam, do your 1/4 inch seam. Well, I didn't do my 1/4 inch seam, and it came up slightly small. So I have to go back. And I thought when I found this out, I thought, they'll never know. I'll just make another one, and I'll make it 12.5 inches because I'm so perfect. And I thought, no, don't do that. Like, I didn't mess up. It was just yeah, I guess I messed up, because it should be 12.5 inches. So I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it like it is, and then at the end of the day, when we put our sashing on, we can just figure it out. We can make our seams a bit smaller, maybe reinforce them. I don't know. Maybe I should make it over. But it's not that much out. It's literally 1/8 of an inch on each side. Which brings me to the point where if you folks are having difficulty doing a 1/4 inch seam, or making your block turn out exactly 12.5 inches, I forgot to tell you this. In quilting, there is something called a scant 1/4 inch. Now, a scant 1/4 inch, S-C-A-N-T, a scant 1/4 inch is a 1/4 inch seam that is, well, it's not a 1/4 inch seam. I don't know why it's called that, because it's like maybe 1 or 2 threads short inside, smaller than a 1/4 inch. It's called a scant 1/4 inch. Maybe you'll see that on some quilting patterns. They actually say this block is sewed a scant 1/4 inch. And you know, you're thinking 1 or 2 threads, but it really makes the difference. And I think that's what happened. I think my 1/4 inch on this new machine is maybe or the foot, or my guiding my fabric through was literally 1 or 2 threads larger. Larger. And so my block didn't turn out 12.5 inches. And again, as I've said before in my last video, do you need to be precise? Yes, sometimes you do. Obviously, sometimes you do. Quilters, it's an art, but it's also a science. Just like baking, like, you know, you have a recipe, you know, like, oh yeah, I made this a million times. I'll dump so much baking powder in. Well, maybe it will work sometimes, and maybe it won't work other times. It's a bit of a science. So that's the whole thing. And as I said, I thought, I'm really owning this. It's not 12.5 inches. Oh well, never mind. I'm gonna keep it. Isn't it pretty? Anyway, back to like making our star blocks. Folks, you have to do 12.5 inches. Maybe you'll want to make, with so many seams, maybe you'll want to make a scant 1/4 inch. Again, if your blocks aren't turning out 12.5 inches, maybe you'll want to go just 1 or 2 threads smaller than your 1/4 inch, and see if that works out. Because I have quite a few people saying, oh, my block's 12 inches. Well, 12 inches, that's a ½ inch off. 12 inches, you should mess around with your seam allowance. I now have to mess around with my actual sewing machine and figure it out and measure it. I thought I was all clever, like, oh, I just got a new sewing machine. I know, I've been sewing forever. I know how to do this. It didn't work out, but I own it. But it's so pretty, isn't it? I like it. It's pretty. It's a star. It's not all that hard. I show you how to do it. And again, as I say at the very end, I haven't done it yet. I got to write out exactly what you need to cut, because it's only 3 fabrics. You can make this in 2 fabrics if you want. You can make this star in 2 fabrics. I chose to do this one. And this is, as you'll see, I'm going on a bit because I actually fussy cut this. What fussy cutting means is I had a print of fabric, this fabric here, and I wanted just to isolate that pretty red flower in the middle. So I sort of jiggery-pokeryed it around to get the fabric, the floral in the middle, and that's called fussy cutting. So say if you have a fabric with a dog and you want just that picture of the dog, but there's, you know, cats all around, so you isolate that piece right there and you center it. So that's what I did with this piece here. But by all means, if you want to make one block, one color block, it's perfectly fine. I'll give you the detailed cutting instructions at the end. So that's our block 4. Block 4, like, isn't that awesome? It's coming along. What else did I have to say? Well, I was going to say something else. Oh, yeah. I forget. Anyway, yeah, so here's our block 4 of our block party 2018. I hope you are enjoying yourself. Our quilt's coming along, and the tutorial is to follow. So thanks so much, folks, for following me. I really appreciate it. Okay, block number 4. Our cutting instructions for sometimes it's called a Sawtooth star block. And you've already seen it. So if you remember, we have our 4 corner squares of our background fabric. My background fabric, as you know, is the white. I've already squared it up, and I'm going to find what we need is a 3.5 inch square. We need four 3.5 inch squares. So I'm going to find my 3.5 inch marker on my ruler. I'll go down the length of my ruler and up. And I'm going to cut a 3.5 inch strip from my background fabric. From there, I had already cut some, remember? From there, I'm going to cut 4. I'm going to cut, let me just cut off this. I'm going to cut off this selvage here. I'm going to cut 4 3.5 inch squares. Again, this is 3.5 inches. I find my 3.5 inches over here. And I'm going to cut 4 of these corner blocks. 1. And I said in a previous video, I do not go by the I don't go by the lines, as you know, on my cutting mat. I like to do these rulers. I use the lines on my mat to keep my fabric nice and straight, but I don't use them to cut my pieces. A lot of quilters do, because they're in 1 inch increments. This is how I like to do it. So we have our 4 corner squares. Now what we're going to be needing is, we'll put this aside. We can always use our scraps later. For all of our star points, or the star background points, as it were, I'm going to need 1 piece of fabric that is 1 piece of background that is 7.25 inches. Now, if you remember, I'm going to take off my selvage here, and then I'll straighten that up. And I have my I'll just straighten this up with my ruler here. So my bottom edge is nice and straight. And I'll get my corner here. And now, I know these are straight here, so I find my 7.25, which is the second line over, 7.25 on this side, and then my 7.25 down here. 7.25, 7.25. And I'll just cut 1 square, which is 7.25 inches. Now, from this 1 square, my 7.25, what we're wanting to do is I'm going to cut it twice on the diagonal. So you line up your ruler exactly on each corner. So we're going to cut this twice. We're going to cut it once through the diagonal, and then trying ever so carefully, whoops, which I didn't, not to shift it. We're going to come back, and we're going to lay the ruler point to point. Careful not to shift it. So we end up with 4 triangles of fabric. Be very careful when you're handling these, because these are on the bias, which is the stretchy part of the fabric. Now, as you saw, you can make, as you saw my block, I made a fussy cut block, or I will be making a fussy cut, which a fussy cut means I have this lovely fabric here, and instead of just cutting, what we need next is a 4 3/4 inch square for my center block. As you see, I actually wanted to make this, I just wanted to actually make this pretty, showcase this pretty image here, this pretty pattern on my fat quarter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate somehow in the middle. I'm going to isolate, hopefully this is in the frame, I'm going to isolate, say, this unit here, yeah, and put, yeah, what you can do is you can just cut one for your center star. If you're going to be doing it twice, you can cut 4 3/4 inch piece for your center of your star. I'm going to fussy cut it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, because I have fabric, I'm going to cut this a bit bigger myself. I'm going to cut a piece out of here. This is called fussy cutting. I don't expect you to do this, but I want to, as I said, I want to isolate this pretty pattern in the middle from my, I want to use that pretty pattern. So I'm going to straighten this up, my piece, And then with this in the middle, where's 4 and 3/4, 4 3/4, I'm going to sort of jiggery-pokery it around. 4 3/4 there, 4 3/4 there. That's about right. I'm going to cut a square, 3/4. That is 4 3/4, and then I end up, you don't have to do this, you're just cutting one square that's 4 3/4 inches. I'm ending up with this pattern in the middle, or it should be in the middle. Not quite, but it's good. Yeah, so that is my center star piece right there. I really liked that. It's going to be set like this, and I probably like this, however it's going to be. And then my sides around here. So now we have these pieces. Now I'm going to use, as you saw, my points of my star are going to be this fabric here. So of my 1/4. By all means, if you want to make your star one piece of fabric, you can do that, one pattern, if it's easier for you. So you cut your center block 1 3/4, and then your other ones, you're going to cut your piece at your 1/4. You're going to cut a strip of 3 7/8. Let me just see. Yeah, you're going to cut 4 pieces of fabric for your points at 3 7/8. Now remember that the 7/8 is the first little line before the number 4 on your ruler. So you're cutting this piece for your star points at 3 7/8. You want to cut one strip from your 1/4 here. And we're going to be using, oops, didn't cut. We're going to be cutting 4 of these, and then we're going to be sub-cutting then. Remember how we do that. Oops, I got to get a better blade. So now we're wanting to cut 4 3 7/8 inch blocks. So this is 3 7/8. Now I'm going to go right the line before the 4, and I'm going to cut 4 of these. One, two, right, the line before the 4. You got to get that nice and straight. 3, 4. Well, that's not quite straight. Let me just see. Yeah. 4 7/8. There we go. Now with these pieces here, I'm going to cut them again. I'm going to cut these, our star points, just once on the diagonal. So I'm thinking I'm all clever, and I'm finishing my star cutting. The camera just flipped out, so I thought, oh, I'll put all my pieces together. I like to do that to see, and I realized I've completely forgot the 2 squares that we have to cut, so please forgive me. So this is the beginnings, though, as you can see, of our star. But what we need to do is, with the background fabric, I'm just going to push this up here. I can put all that together. What we need, and I made a mistake, and forgive me please, is we need to cut we need to have 2 pieces of background fabric, in addition to what we've cut, we need 2 pieces 3 7/8. Okay? So forgive me. Let me see how I can do this. You won't probably have a bolt. So forgive me. I'll just square this up here. I just need 2 pieces 3 7/8. So I'll do that. I'll make a 3 7/8 strip. If you remember, we made 3 1/2, but I can't use that piece. Actually, I'll just do it 1 piece here. So I'm just going to do a strip 3. You can do it a little bit better on your smaller pieces of background fabric. So I'm going to find my 3 7/8, which is the one before the 4. I'm going up here, down there, and I'll just cut a piece about this big, so I don't waste any of that over here. And then I need 2. I'll cut off this selvage here, nice and straight. I need 2 3 7/8 inches. Forgive me, I messed up a little bit there. I got ahead of myself. So 3 7/8. And then we can start putting our star together. I was all excited. and I completely forgot, but you'll see what I have to do here. 3 7/8. That line. And then just like we did on the green points, we have to cut these, if you remember seeing, on the diagonal. So we just cut these. These go around our center block. So I've made a bit of a mess here, but by all means, as you're going along in quilting, once you start getting into having a lot of pieces of fabric, you want to keep them maybe with a post-it note, or with a, somehow, like, so that you can keep track of what you have. We don't have too many pieces. Here are our corner ones, here are our points, and here are our center block. So what you might want to do is keep these pieces nice and in order. And then what I do like to do, I may be jumping the gun, but I don't think it is. I like to see what I'm actually in a small block, what I'm working with. So these are the pieces I forgot, remember? So this is a tone on tone. So I'm just going to lay this out to see. I'm excited. I want to see my block. So after you cut, yeah, there you go. I forgot these. I'll show, and then we'll show you how we actually construct these. Now this, if you remember week 3, my more like a square with a frame and a frame. This is a true square in a square. Okay, this is a true square in a square. People were saying, oh, how do you make that? You have to cut these setting triangles. So here are my corner blocks, and this is going to be the flying geese block, which we've made. But I'll show you how we do this. And look, how exciting. And my star is coming together. I think this is I like doing this because it's, very quickly on you see, oh, look at my block. Like, that's so cool, Now the construction of it, you have to be careful, and we'll take you through that step by step. We've already done blocks with points, but look, there is my block. Shortly thereafter, cutting. I mean, how exciting is that? Now we're going to embark on the actual piecing of it, and I'm going to stop this for a second because I got to set my new sewing machine up, see how it works, and then I'll be back. What I've done after I have put my block together to see what it looks like, I'll separate it all. Now it comes to the piecing. I wanted to address the fact that we're making one block, okay? We're just making a sampler block. And if you remember how we cut it, it was fairly easy. We had the corners, we had the da-da-da, and you have maybe a post-it note to keep it. But if you're making 20 of the same block, then you have to figure out how many pieces that you're going to need. If you have 20 blocks and it's all going to be this block, 20 times 4, you're going to be needing to cut out 20, 40, 80 of these squares. You're going to be needing to cut out 80 of your corner squares. Do you understand? You're going to be needing to cut out 20 of your center block, and then again you have to multiply it. So it's like you could, if you're not interested in making a sampler quilt and you just want to do a 1 block quilt, then you have to figure out your cutting by timesing it from your cutting pieces here, and then that way you can really keep track, maybe in a Ziploc bag, by labeling it, like you have these, and literally corner blocks. If you're going to do it, we're doing it 1 by 1, and so it's a little bit easier. And so hence I've laid it out like this, because we've only cut out 1 block. Anyway, to get on with the piecing, that's the proper side. I have a tone on tone. I have to be real careful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start. I'm going to take this over to my machine, but I want to show you how I'm going to pin it. We're going to make this flying geese, 1, 2, 3, 4 flying geese units. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece here and put pretty side together. You're going to line up that top edge there and pin it. Somebody was asking me, how do I pin? How do I pin? I'm like, and I was saying, you pin however you're comfortable. If you're as most people know, I don't like to pin, but because I'm trying to teach something, I'm pinning it. So I'm doing it this way for now. You line up that top edge, 1/4 inch, and this little point will hang off about 1/4 inch. Then you're going to sew that, okay? Then you're going to turn that around. Having sewn it, I can't really show you, having turned that around, and then you're going to do this one exactly the same way. And you're going to sew off. So you're going to have a unit that looks like this with the seams. Oops. You're going to have a unit that looks like that with a 1/4 inch seam, 1/4 inch hang off there, okay? So you're going to pin it, the top edge, hang coming off, bring that back down. If you want to press it, by all means, then you're going to come over to this one. You're going to pin it, having that sewn onto that other piece there, and you're going to end up with a piece with a 1/4 inch seam that looks like that. The top edge is going to match, the bottom edge is going to have that piece there. I'm going to go now and do that on all 4 of my flying geese units. So I'm over at my brand new sewing machine, see how it works, and I've actually just made 1 flying geese unit. I didn't want to leave you in the lurch here. And this, folks, hopefully you can see it. I'm right in front of my machine, and must excuse my camera. This is how it's going to end up. You see that little, that edge there that's hanging down. This is what you want. You want these little dog ears, as it were, up at the top, and you want this sort of little legs, that 1/4 inch seam there. So what I'm going to do, I've come to my second piece, and I'm coming from this point on. I've not pinned it because my pieces are matched up perfectly. I'm going to start stitching 1/4 inch. I have to keep my hands out of the way. Right off of the end. My new sewing machine has it's just a mechanical machine if you saw my review, so I'm getting used to it. I have to do everything by myself. So I'll grab another piece here. I have that little dog ear, as you can see, and then what I've done is I wanted to show you, sort of finger press it to the dark, and then what you do is you line up the top piece here, okay? We've cut it nice and straight. You've lined up the top. Now this time you can start at the top, and again, by all means, pin. I'll put my presser foot down and my needle, and this is my 1/4 inch foot. I'm just going to stitch along 1/4 inch, and I'm going to stitch it right off of the edge. This seam is coming this way. I'm going to stitch right off, keeping my 1/4 inch, that point there. Pull it out. And there's my one flying geese unit. And I'll go over and I'll iron it just like I do. Press it to the dark side and make it nice rectangle. And I'm going to do 4 of these. I've sewn my flying geese units in place here. And I'll reach around and get my pins. Excuse me, sometimes when I'm looking at my video, there's a bright light over here. Somebody said, oh, you have to adjust your lighting. I don't know what that is. My sewing machine lights off, my yacht lights off, I don't know what it is, so you have to excuse that glare. So I've sewn these units together. Now we're going to concentrate here on our center block. Now this time, you want to move this. I find it easier to do it this way because I'm a visual and I can see what I'm doing. Even if I had a quilt with 20 of the same blocks, I think I'd do 1 block at a time. There's a method you could chain piece them all together and whiz through it. I'm all for whizzing, but when you're working with so many pieces, and as we get a little bit more, even though you're beginners, there's quite a few pieces in this block, and we want to keep everything in order. So this is how I do it. Now this piece here, if you've laid it out nicely, this one here, we're going to be taking our these are called triangles, setting triangles for our center star. What we're going to do, almost the exact same principle. But this time, one at a time, these these ends are going to hang off 1/4 inch. Okay? So I'm not going to pin it. I want you to take it over to the machine, all 4 pieces, and then stitch one at a time, 1/4 inch. But the dog ear is going to hang off. And then it's going to end up, your seam is going to look like that. Your 1/4 inch. Then you're going to come back and you're going to sew this one on. And your dog ear is going to hang off that bit to that bit. So that you end up, there's your 1/4 inch seam. You're going to end up with this here. Remember, the object is to get this 1/4 inch. Same thing. You're going to, this end is going to hang off. And then when you sew it, you're going to sew right through that piece. Each time you do a seam, press it to the side so that until you get your 4 seams. Oops. So you get your 4 seams, and you're sewing your seams. You're sewing onto the other and then off the points to make your square within a square. Okay, I hope I explained that. Do 1 at a time. 1 seam, push to the door, or this way you're going to push actually up to the light side. Actually, that's fine. That's the way the seam's going to go. So you're going to do this, and you're going to stitch it. You're going to stitch that and push it over until you have these 4 seams, and then you're going to have this end here. You're going to have these hanging off, and that's what's going to make our points. We're going to get to that. That's what's going to make our points. So now concentrate now on your center star block here. So I just want to show you what I've done. I've taken this over to my machine and I've stitched. See how I've left that hanging off? I've stitched right off. And then I've taken my second piece and I've stitched to that point there, right off. And then I've taken my third piece and I've placed it, pinned it, and I've stitched with that bit hanging off, right? And now I'm coming to my fourth piece. Here's my fourth piece. And you see how it's hanging off. That's what we want. And I'm just going to find my 1/4 inch and stitch right along there until I get that. And then we have these pieces that are hanging off. And I'll press them real well to the outside. Even that's pressing to the light, but this construction, you want it going that way, actually. So, and then I'm going to end up with a nice square block after I press it. So you can see I have my nice square center block here. Now, very, very important, as I keep telling you, when you go to iron your seams, you're wanting to set this seam. Just push your iron down onto that stitching before you roll your fabric up, and then you get a really nice crisp line here, which makes a nice block. It's so important to press your seams really well. Now at this point, we're going to construct our block. We're going to sew our units together. But if you would like to, you can just take off with your pair of scissors, or if you want with a rotary cutter, you can take off these dog ears. Okay, just go along and cut off these dog ears, because they will not get in the way, but yeah, sort of. So just cut them off, and I'm going to do that. I'll make a mess here. Cut that off. Cut these dog ears off. Cut the top ones off. I'll do it over here. And then that makes it easier for us to construct our blocks. It shouldn't be that hard. Anyway, I'm going to do that. So anyway, I'm going to take these all off. Now, our next point is, make a mess. Here's our top one. What we're going to do is, as we've done another one, this is basically what's called almost like a 9 patch, right? Just consisting of lots of pieces. So what we're going to do is, for our top unit, we're just going to do each side. Again, it's so much easier to keep it right in front of you visually, so you know what you're doing. You're going to stitch pretty side to pretty side of our unit here on both sides, okay? I'm going to do that on the top and the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to match up the points here on our center unit. We're going to match up our points. Now it might end up you want to put a pin in there perhaps on either side of this unit of that. You want that point right there to match up perfectly with that point there. Since we've sewn it, so that's 1/4 of an inch, you're going to match your top to your bottom, and you're going to match up that point right there. You might want to put a pin right there, or however you pin it, and then go very, very slowly to that point there, and then off, and then hopefully, because we've sewn it so precisely, these 2 points here will match. So what I'm going to want you to do is I want you to do all 3 units. The right over to the left over to the right. So you have your top unit. And then if you want to do this one, by all means, come down, come back over to your board and lay them all out so you can see what you're working with, but do it very slowly. This one is easy. This is just a straight stitch from top to bottom. This unit here and this unit here. This unit, you're going to have to be very careful and watch your points. I wanted to show you, I'm over at my ironing board, I wanted to show you that I've stitched my unit here, having matched up as best I can. I'm a hair out there. That's fine. I'm not bothered. My center, my side units to my center unit. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're 2 more seams and we're done. Like, unbelievable, right? So what you're wanting to do is you're going to be taking the top and then the bottom, and you're going to, I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way. You're going to be matching up, as we did on this point, you're going to be matching up this point here with that point there. And there's all sorts of tricks of the trade, how they do this, how other quilters do it. You can put a point down there and find that point there, going straight down. And then you can find that point, and then you can pin on either side of that point there to hold the fabric, so that I would be then stitching from here, there. A lot of people start at the beginning, start at the middle and stitch out from each side. So whatever you're comfortable with trying to match that point, your 1/4 inch seam, and having matched that point both on the front and the back, is going to be your task here. As you've already done here, we've matched up this point with that point. And if you're out a stitch or two, a thread or two, don't worry about it. It's difficult to get points, who cares? But try the best you can to get that point matched up on the front and the back. Sometimes, as I said, you might want to put a pin on either side and stitch along to secure it. And then once I do that on the top and the bottom unit, one thing you want to do is, before I do this, what I have done here is when I've gone to iron it, I'm at my ironing board, I have ironed this top unit with my seams going this way, with my seams going out. Okay, I've ironed my blocks with these units with my seams going out. My center block, therefore, I have ironed with my seams going in. They're facing the center block. So that when we go, remember about nesting our seams? When we go, we're not concerned also about this point. We're also concerned about this nested unit, and it should work out perfectly. You're just, because one seam has been ironed one way, one seam has been ironed the other way, you can then just squeeze it along there, shift it along. You can feel it, how beautifully that nests. And that's where you're going to put a pin. You're going to start at the top here, and then you're going to figure out your point here, right to there, and then you're going to pin here. This is going to nest. Look how beautifully that nests. You're going to put a pin there. Having nested that seam, because you've pressed them the proper way, and then you're going to go off. So we have 2 seams left, and we are done. So my finished block, I'm thrilled with it. I really am. You guys will have probably just made your star all one color. That would be super, or if you wanted to do the 2 colors, this is my fussy cut piece here. I like that. It's my other blocks were a little bit more colorful, but I just liked this star. Lots of units, but I'm thrilled the way it's turned out. My points are pretty good, except one that's just a hair off or so. But I'm really thrilled. 12.5 inches. Yeah, so there you go. It looked a little bit complicated. Maybe some of you are going, oh, my word. But I've pressed it really well. The inside seams, the ironing and the pressing to get your 12.5-inch square, very, very important. So hopefully you've enjoyed making this. It's a little bit more technical. Yeah, I'm just so thrilled about it. I'm so thrilled about it, and I hope you are. So thank you so much again for block number 4. We are getting there. This is fun. Okay, folks, thanks so much. And all the best with your blocks. Let me know how they turn out. Okay, bye.